Good afternoon. My name is Ram, and I represent Wipro. At Wipro, we've been focusing around building smart applications for our customers, applications that are aware, intelligent, and autonomous. And some of those imperatives for those smart applications are helping look at smart interactions, smart processes, smart platforms, and smart security. I'll hand it over to Jim as part of Dun Bradstreet as to how Jim has actually helped along with Wipro in building the smarter applications. So Jim, over to you, Jim.
Great. Thank you. Good afternoon. Everyone can hear me well? All right, so I'm Jim Maguire. I'm the leader of development and engineering at Dun Bradstreet. And in that role, I'm responsible for the back office applications that drive Dun Bradstreet's business. Now, when you start looking at the areas of technology, back office systems is critical to any business, but it's often an area where companies look to de-emphasize for investment. Well, at Dun Bradstreet's, that's no different. People in back office systems are often asked to control costs and basically do more with less while still trying to meet increasing demands from their ultimate business users. So today I'm going to present two business cases for you. I don't know how time's going to run, and we'll get to the second one. But the first has to do with our core applications, core ERP applications, and the second one will be relating to our data warehouse. But before we get to that, I think a lot of people got a little answer sheet. We're going to play a little game today, all right? So in the presentation, I'm going to give you 8 bits of trivia about Dun & Bradstreet or the technologies we're using in general. The first answer sheet that we score that has the 8 right answers will win the prizes. The valuable prizes are in front of me. All I can say about the prizes are this: your rivals will be jealous, you'll earn the respect and admiration of your colleagues, and that whole debacle that happened last Thursday with the turkey, well, maybe your in-laws will forget about that as well. So let's jump into the little bit about Dun & Bradstreet. So our company was founded over 175 years ago. Did anyone see the movie Amistad? Amistad, right? So Louis Tapan, it was in that movie, was not only a pioneer for slave rights, but he also formed the company Dun & Bradstreet. That company was the first business information company. It was looking to provide consistent, reliable, and accurate information to enable other companies to get information about who they're doing business with. Now here we are 175 years later, and that core mission still stands the same for the company, although in a vastly more modern format. Today, Dun & Bradstreet employs roughly 5,000 people worldwide. And with a company as long as the history as Dun & Bradstreet, you'd probably be thinking, hey Jim, I bet some pretty famous people have worked at Dun & Bradstreet. Well, you know what? You're right. We've had 4 former US presidents work at Dun & Bradstreet. They include Abe Lincoln, Grover Cleveland, Ulysses S. Grant, and William McKinley. You get those 4? Hint. Okay. Also, if about 30 years ago you'd walked into the Dun & Bradstreet office in California, you might have seen Woody Harrelson as a receptionist. He was a temp for us for a while. Woody Harrelson, right? Cheers, Hunger Games, okay. So most people have probably heard of our DUNS number, Data Universal Numbering System. It's become somewhat of a standard in the market. It's a unique identifier for businesses that allow other companies to go and find information about another company. It's necessary if you want to do business with the US government. It requires you to have a DUNS number. And if you ever want to create an app and sell on Apple's store, and I don't know if anyone would really want to do that, but they also require you to have a DUNS number. So we've been doing this a long time. We have information for over 320 million companies in our world-based application. We spend a lot of time making sure that information is kept up to date. Today we use things like machine learning and AI in order to keep that information up to date. So there's a lot of information out there. Dun & Bradstreet's basically the company that allows other businesses to extract value from that. We've been doing business with Wipro for about 20 years. There is an extension of our application development and support organization. We use them both in an onshore and offshore model, and they're a big part of the 2 business cases that I'm going to be presenting to you today. At Dun & Bradstreet, we use a lot on AWS. This won't be on the quiz, but just to give you an idea, we have 52 AWS accounts, all integrated with one login. We have 103 VPCs across 5 AWS regions. We have about 2,800 EC2 instances, 250 RDS and Redshift databases, 350 Lambda functions with over 150 million invocations per month, 350 50 VDI workstations, 1.3 petabytes of EBS storage, and 900 terabytes of S3 storage. So, needless to say, we're doing a lot with AWS. So let's jump into our first business case. So that's my dog Diva, right? She snores. She snores quite loudly. So you're probably saying, gee, why is Diva so sad? Well, just because like every back office systems manager, Diva can relate to some of the problems we face: a poor system performance, dealing with cost inefficiencies, dealing with an aging infrastructure, having to mitigate the risk for vendor software and application risk, and security. Challenges to have improved flexibility. With all these challenges and data retention pressures, it's not surprising none of us look like Diva does at the end of the day. Now, just as a side note, no animals were hurt in the creation of this production. Well, these challenges were present for Dun Bradstreet. We had multiple physical instances of our ERP application. We noted degrading system performance over time. We were in a arrangement where a company was doing the hosting for us. Now, they called this a managed cloud service. Not really cloud. You know, it's like one of those situations, like if anyone walked down the strip, they might have saw Marilyn Monroe walking down the strip. It's not the real thing. So in this case, although they were calling it cloud, it really wasn't a cloud. It was just a hosting agreement. And that reminds me, did you know that in the 1953 movie, How to Marry a Millionaire, Marilyn Monroe posed with a D&B reference book? True story. All right, going back on to some of the other challenges we had. So we had pressures to try to identify cost inefficiencies and remove them in the organization. But when you're in a hosting agreement, every year you have that annual uptake, right? Everybody knows what I'm talking about with that. So there's no necessary perceived value of that, but the costs go up every year. Your management wants you to cut a bit of your costs every year to achieve efficiencies. How do you do that when so much of your costs are fixed costs for that? We also had the hardware on an aging infrastructure. Although it was hosted, hosting is really just a transfer of the risk, right? So I have an old machine on my premise, but if I move it to a hosting agreement, if that service provider has physical hardware there that I'm responsible for, then it's just transferring risk one place to the other. The hardware obsolescence still needs to be addressed. And that service provider over time would say, you know, we can update the hardware for you, but they wanted a fee for the migration, and they also wanted a new 3-year commitment to their service. So one of the challenges we mentioned was flexibility. Now, people who mention manage applications, how many times have you heard this? Someone from the finance organization comes by and say, oh, you know what, Jim? I need a dedicated environment for 3 weeks for some testing. And when do you get that notification? Like on Friday. And when do they want the environment? Like Monday, right? You see that. So we had a challenge juggling the environments that we had for the ERP applications. And we needed a way to be more flexible and respond to those needs. I think the next item I would say is that we were looking for a long-term plan of what we were going to do about the modernization of the ERP applications. As anyone can attest to, replacing your core financial applications is not a trivial task. It could be a quite large investment that you'd have to commit to that effort. We needed a way that we could do something to address the immediate concerns, but also provide us flexibility for the future. Our ERP applications have been within the organization for well over 10 years. The question is, when you do something in the future, did you want to take 10 plus years of financial information and bring it for you? Was there a more cost-effective alternative to archive those applications, make them available should there be an audit or regulatory purpose to go back and look at that information? So we found that this was an address to be challenged. So let's move. So why AWS? Well, we considered several alternatives for migration, but for us, one of the key items was to make sure we were maintaining the same version of the operating system. We were running on Red Hat Linux, and the view was that if we were able to maintain the same operating system we had before, we could eliminate some of the challenges that we had with the application functioning, with any customizations and integrations we built on that, It would also, and I hate the word because I think it's too much of a cliche, it's overused, but we make it more of a lift and shift when we brought the application over. We also wanted to achieve a modern architecture for the application. We selected a R4 2XL with, for EC2, 2 terabytes of space on both the application and the database server. But what this meant for us was pretty dramatic. We basically went from an application that had 16 gigabyte of memory to over 60. We doubled and upgraded the number of processors. After we completed the upgrade, the users used the F word with me, fast. And you like to hear that from your user groups. The entire idea that within AWS we could take a clone and set up a new instance within a matter of minutes was extremely attractive to us. And we've had several requests for projects in the pipeline where we may have to make that available, make use of that. And of course, in the end, the whole alternative was very cost efficient for us. So how did we get that done? Well, we had a 4-step process. Our first was a planning process. Now, when we looked at the alternatives, we had 5 or 6 different alternatives we wanted to evaluate on how we can migrate the application. We did a pilot first to work through those. Our goal for that pilot was to make sure that we explored the alternatives, and if we're going to hit a roadblock, we failed fast, right? The whole cliche, fail fast, succeed in the long run. So our other concerns, first and foremost, the migration had to work. So we needed to go far enough down the path with that pilot program. So we cloned the database, we cloned the application, we brought the application up, it was functioning. We made sure that we had validation that an inbound and outbound interface were working and functioning. Other concerns was that the accounting team were busy with other business initiatives. So has everyone heard of ASC 606, Revenue Recognition Accounting Pronouncement? So as part of that, we had to do a dual reporting under both accounting standards. So our people in finance were very busy on that. We needed to make sure this migration could be done with minimal disruption to the business. Also, because they were busy with that dual reporting and had their monthly close and quarterly close process, we needed to make sure we had a schedule, we communicated the dates we had for that migration, and we stuck to them. The third item is a little bit weird. We wanted to keep the migration as quiet as possible. That was for twofold. One, that if when we were doing the actual production cutover, we had an issue, we wanted to be able to fail back to the previous solution with a minimal disruption and without a lengthy restore process. The second is we wanted to make sure that it was not causing undue alarm by a previous hosting provider. Now don't get me wrong, we did notify them of our intention to move away from their service. However, we didn't want to hit roadblocks where we have time schedules for certain backups and restores happening to us, causing undue alarm, or possibly going back and tripping increased service loads that would incur a charge. And I think the last one is we also had a time frame for the overall project that we knew we had about 16 weeks in which we had to complete the objective. We had a particular deadline when that annual renewal was coming for the hosting agreement. We needed to be done in time for that. Otherwise, we'd have to renew for a whole nother year. So next we did a more of a design stage where we continued on and we identified all the population of interfaces. In all, there were about 50 inbound and outbound discrete interfaces we had to build for. We wanted to make sure we identified any patches that would be required and that we had everything set up for the physical environment. We did next was the build and test. We did 2 rounds of system integration testing where they're more IT focused and limited user participation, followed by 1 full UAT. During this time, we hit a number of items, technical challenges, but those were good. They were actually welcome because everything we found during that, we integrated into our run book for the actual production migration. We also made sure that as we were using both onshore and offshore people to do those migrations, to do the testing, it was going to be the same people who would play those roles when we did the production migration. So that was important for us because when we did the production migration, we could really follow the sun and everybody knew what they were responsible for in order to make it a success. When it came time for the actual production, we did a couple of steps. First, we identified some pre-cloning items, so we set up the environment ahead of time. Also ahead of time, we cloned the database from the previous hosting site. Then on the production weekend, we were able to just limit our scope of the work to application cloning for both the application volumes and the data. And then we did the post-migration activities, which included bringing in all the interfaces. So I mentioned before, not going to go through everything on the slide, but we see on the far left, we have the previous hosting environment. What we did is we did a clone of that environment to our local premise, and then we went back to AWS. That was in order to try to keep that traffic down as much as possible. But also, if we had a problem, right, and we were going to be a no-go for that production migration, we wanted to have an environment where we continue to work on and work out through the issues. So where did this land us? So we had some slippage from the original plan. Overall, I think our delay was about 4 weeks, but you know, if you told me in the beginning we would have done it in 20 weeks, or you told me 26 weeks, I would have happily accepted that. We had some challenges both on the technical side, but also a little bit more contention on resources for other initiatives that were going through the organization. But overall, it was a tremendous success. Overall, we achieved a 64% OpEx reduction from the previous hosting provider to what we found by moving to AWS. And I think people were pretty astonished on that. We had an immediate payback on that project within 1 year, which was an impressive hurdle. After you take away the amortization of the capitalized cost for the projects, over 3 years, we're looking at about a 52% reduction in the expense over this. We met the objective for the scale for growth, and we also have lower cost DR environments. Okay, so we're starting to get down. Are you ready for the trivia challenge? Everyone has their scoring sheets. Okay, let's go. First question, as I mentioned before, which of the following US presidents did not work for Dun Bradstreet? Was it Abraham Lincoln, Grover Cleveland, Ulysses S. Grant, William McKinley, or was it Bill Clinton? This one requires you to do some math. In what year was Dun Bradstreet founded? Was it A, 2015? Was it B, 1963? Is it C, 1930? D, 1907? Or E, 1841? Which Hunger Games star temped as a receptionist at Dun & Bradstreet? Was it Jennifer Lawrence, Elizabeth Banks, C, Josh Hutcherson, D, Liam Hemsworth, or E, Woody Harrelson? All right, this one you have to think about. After moving the ERP applications to AWS, what is keeping Jim up at night? Is it A, an aging application infrastructure, B, application performance concerns, C, achieving cost efficiencies, D, managing risk, or E, a snoring chocolate lab named Diva? Question 5, what D&B founder was the great-grandnephew of Ben Franklin and subject of Steven Spielberg's 1997 film Amistad? Was it Benjamin Douglas, B, John Bradstreet, C, John Graham Dunn, D, Arthur Whiteside, or E, Louis Tappan? Question 6, how many companies did Dun & Bradstreet have in our world-based database? Is it A, 25 million, B, 40 million, C, 53 million, D, 61 million, or E, 320 million? In the 1953 movie, How to Marry a Millionaire, what actress posed with the Dun & Bradstreet reference book? Was it A, Susan Hayward, B, Bette Davis, C, Joan Crawford, D, Tina Louise, or E, Marilyn Monroe? Last question. What does DUNS stand for? Is it A, Data Universal Numbering System, B, DMB Unique Numbering System, C, Digital Unified Naming System, D, Digital Unified Numbering System, or E, Diablo Unworldly Nacho Sauce? Now, if anybody makes a nacho sauce and uses that term, I want a royalty for that, okay? Okay, so we're starting to get down for time. Lakshman, if you just get the answer sheets, okay? Our second business case had to do with the migration of our data warehouse from Redshift to Sybase. over the years, we had a proliferation of one-off data marts that were popping out through the organizations. We found that the information available wasn't sufficient, and a lot of people were standing up pocket data off the side in order to get supplement information available in the data warehouse. We first wanted to simplify our data warehouse structure. Second, improve performance. And third, eliminating cost inefficiencies. The last driver for us, we wanted to make sure that we could retain our current suite of BI tools within the application. So we migrated our data warehouse to Redshift. Just really quickly for this, we did use some accelerators that Wipro provided, like their CDRS tool that helped us migrate the database from Redshift, from Sybase over to Redshift. For our approach, one of the things we did for our initial pilot for our move over, we purposely selected some very large tables and things that invoked our business intelligence tools to make sure that we had all the complexity. This is a little bit of our infrastructure. For the sake of time, I'm just going to cut right through there. Some of the challenges we had were about the database migration. I mentioned we used the CDRS tool to help do that, help speed that up. Our second challenge is we had a lot of batch processes that were one-off SQL scripts. We needed to find a better web-based tool for our ETL, so we selected Talend. Talend had quite a number. It was, I think, more than 600 at the time. Now it's over 900 connectors and APIs and we use that to automate as an ETL tool, cloud-based. We did have some challenge with time zone. I think one of the other items I'll just mention quickly, we had a lot of special characters that were used in our sales order systems that resided in that O database that we had to build a flow within Talend in order to remove those from the data set when we brought the data warehouse over. Overall, it was pretty good. Our large queries had a 70% improvement time in loading, so we're really happy with that. We also achieved a reduction in OpEx. So just a reminder, please complete your surveys. And thank you. But wait, did you get the right answers? Do we have a winner? All right, Lakshman. There you go. Come, select your prize. All right. Who is it? Joey? Congratulations, Joey. And last but not least, Kay? Congratulations. All right, everyone, thank you very much. Have a great conference.